You're not aging faster. Time itself is accelerating. Not metaphorically, not psychologically, literally. The frequency of reality is being compressed, and your consciousness is fighting to keep pace with a planetary rhythm that has shifted by 0.6 Hz in the last 3 decades. You feel it every morning when you wake exhausted despite 8 hours of sleep. You feel it in the way December arrives before you've processed June. You feel it when you look at your child and realize they're somehow 5 years older than they were yesterday. Scientists will tell you it's a perceptual illusion that as you age, each year becomes a smaller fraction of your total lived experience, making it feel faster relative to childhood. They'll cite memory encoding efficiency and cognitive anchoring. They'll show you studies about routine and novelty, about how familiar experiences compress in memory while new ones expand. They're measuring the symptom, not the disease. Because what they won't tell you, what the 1952 Schumann frequency measurements reveal when placed against 2024 data, is that Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat, the resonance that your brain has entrained to for hundreds of thousands of years, is rising. The gap between your biological clock and the planet's temporal signature is widening. And this isn't random drift. The Fibonacci compression pattern appearing in solar cycles, geomagnetic data, and mass consciousness events suggests orchestration. Your perception isn't failing, it's being overridden. Something fundamental in the structure of experienced reality has changed, and your body knows it even if your mind hasn't caught up yet. That feeling of being pulled forward through time, of weeks evaporating like morning mist, of barely being able to catch your breath before the next season arrives. That's not nostalgia, that's not aging, that's resonance disruption. And the most disturbing part? When you dig into the classified research from the 1960s, when you read the suppressed findings from Soviet chronobiology labs, when you trace the electromagnetic signature of human consciousness across decades of data, you start to see that someone understood this would happen. Someone knew that if you change the frequency of the field, you change the perception of time within it. The question isn't whether time feels faster. The question is whether it's happening to you or being done to you. In 1952, physicist Winfried Otto Schumann calculated that Earth's ionosphere and surface create a resonant cavity vibrating at approximately 7.83 Hz, a frequency he predicted would remain constant barring major planetary changes. The ionosphere, that layer of electrically charged particles 50 to 400 miles above your head, acts as the upper boundary. Earth's surface acts as the lower. Between them, electromagnetic waves bounce and circulate, creating standing wave patterns. Schumann's equations were elegant, precise, and for 40 years, accurate. Naval communications systems relied on it. Submarine ELF transmitters used extremely low frequencies to penetrate ocean depths, and they needed stable baseline measurements. The US Navy, the Soviet Northern Fleet, they all confirmed it. 7.83 Hz, consistent, reliable, the heartbeat of the planet. Then in 1994, something shifted. Monitoring stations in Tomsk, Russia recorded the Schumann resonance spiking to 8.1 Hz for sustained periods. Not during solar storms, not during geomagnetic anomalies, during baseline conditions. Dr. Sergei Pulinets, head of the Russian Space Research Institute's Ionosphere Monitoring Program, published findings that most Western journals refused to run. The data showed not just spikes, but directional drift. The base frequency was rising. By 2014, it was hitting 8.5 Hz during geomagnetic storms. The official position? Measurement anomalies, ionospheric disturbances, solar weather, technical calibration issues. But here's what they couldn't explain away. The HeartMath Institute's Global Coherence Initiative, which operates 6 independent monitoring stations across continents, California, Lithuania, Saudi Arabia, New Zealand, South Africa, Alberta, confirmed the trend. Base frequency drift upward, with spike events reaching 11, 14, even 16 Hz during periods of mass human emotional activation. September 11, 2001, December 26, 2004, the day of the Indian Ocean tsunami. March 2020, the first weeks of global pandemic lockdown. During each event, Schumann resonance monitors recorded simultaneous spikes across all stations, not from solar activity, from collective human consciousness. Your brain's alpha wave state, the frequency of relaxed wakefulness and time perception, operates at 8 to 12 Hz. This isn't coincidental. It evolved to synchronize with Earth's 7.83 Hz pulse. For millennia, human consciousness entrained to planetary resonance the way a tuning fork resonates with another tuning fork at the same pitch. Your circadian rhythm, your sleep-wake cycle, your subjective sense of time passing, all of it locked to that electromagnetic metronome. When that pulse rises, your neural oscillators struggle to match it. The result isn't subtle. Circadian disruption, sleep fragmentation. The sensation that you're always running late, that time is slipping through your fingers like water. Temporal disorientation. Ancient Vedic texts called this Kali Yuga compression, the final age of a four-part cosmic cycle when time itself contracts before universal reset. The Vishnu Purana describes it as living in a dream where hours pass like minutes, where the rhythm of days loses coherence. They weren't speaking poetically. They were describing the phenomenology of frequency shift. What they knew then, and what modern chronobiology is now rediscovering, is that time perception is not psychological, it's electromagnetic. Dr. Michael Persinger at Laurentian University spent 30 years demonstrating that exposing the human brain to specific electromagnetic frequencies could alter time perception, mood, even mystical experience. Frequency shapes consciousness. Change the frequency, change the experience. It's not metaphysics, it's physics. And if Earth's base frequency is rising, if the field you're embedded in is accelerating, then your perception of time isn't malfunctioning. It's responding accurately to a reality that has fundamentally shifted beneath you. The question becomes, why is it shifting? Natural planetary evolution? Solar cycle influences? Or something else? Something that benefits from a population too temporally compressed to think, to integrate, to resist? Here's how your brain constructs the experience of time. It's not a passive recording device. It's an oscillating system that generates rhythmic firing patterns across billions of neurons. Oscillating networks in your prefrontal cortex and basal ganglia coordinate to produce what neuroscientists call neural clock signals. Beta waves, 13 to 30 Hz, for active processing and problem solving. Alpha waves, 8 to 12 Hz, for relaxed awareness and monitoring. Theta waves, 4 to Hz, for memory encoding and deep reflection. These oscillations act as an internal metronome, measuring duration by counting cycles. When you're engaged and creating new memories, your brain samples reality at a higher rate. More neural snapshots per unit of external time equals denser subjective time. That's why childhood feels eternal. Everything is novel. Your brain is firing rapidly, encoding frantically, creating a rich tapestry of temporal experience. A summer afternoon at age 7 contains more processed information than an entire month at age 40. But there's a second timer running beneath conscious awareness. Your suprachiasmatic nucleus, a tiny cluster of about 20,000 neurons sitting just above the optic chiasm in your hypothalamus, entrains to external zeitgebers, time givers, primarily light. The rise and fall of solar illumination resets this master clock every day, keeping you synchronized with Earth's rotation. Except light isn't the only zeitgeber. Studies from the Max Planck Institute for Brain Research show that when subjects are isolated in Faraday cages, copper mesh enclosures that block external electromagnetic fields, including Schumann frequencies, their circadian rhythms drift to 25 to 27-hour cycles within days. They're no longer anchored to Earth's tempo, their biological clocks freewheel. They lose track of time completely, not because they can't see daylight. Many of these experiments control for light exposure, but because they've been disconnected from the planet's electromagnetic signature. Your brain evolved for hundreds of thousands of years entrained to 7.83 Hz. That frequency became the baseline, the reference oscillation against which all other temporal processing occurs. It's the carrier wave of your consciousness. Now scale that up. If the planet's base frequency rises from 7.83 to 8.6 sh, a 10% increase, your neural oscillators must fire faster to stay synchronized. Each alpha wave cycle completes quicker. Your brain processes the same amount of external clock time in fewer internal oscillations. The result, the subjective experience that time, is accelerating. You're trying to count seconds with a clock that's been sped up by an outside force. Think of it like this. Imagine you're listening to a song at normal speed, tapping your foot to the beat. Suddenly, someone increases the playback to 1.1x speed. The song is still the same length in minutes and seconds, but your experience of it compresses. You feel rushed. Your tapping struggles to keep pace. That's what's happening to your consciousness. The metronome you've been trained to for your entire evolutionary history has accelerated, and your subjective experience is collapsing to match it. Ancient Egyptian mystery schools encoded this knowledge in the concept of Ma'at, cosmic order maintained by frequency and vibration. The goddess Ma'at represented not just justice, but temporal coherence. When Ma'at faltered, when the cosmic frequency destabilized, time became unmoored. The Book of the Dead describes the soul's journey through the Duat, the underworld, as a place where time does not function normally. Hours expand into eons, eons compress into moments. This wasn't mythology, it was instruction. A warning about what happens when you lose resonance with the field. The Hopi called it koyaniskatsi, life out of balance. Their prophecies predicted a coming age, where days would shorten, not in length, but in depth, where the space within each moment would collapse, where humans would race through life, never fully present, always already moving toward the next thing. They were describing temporal compression 400 years before neuroscience had the tools to measure it. Modern physics offers a parallel framework. In relativity, time dilation occurs when you approach the speed of light or enter intense gravitational fields. Time literally moves differently depending on your reference frame. But there's another form of relativistic experience, perceptual time dilation through frequency modulation. If you increase the rate of neural oscillation, the frequency at which consciousness samples reality, you compress the perception of duration. The mechanism is identical whether we call it Schumann disruption, consciousness acceleration, or electromagnetic time compression. What matters is this: someone noticed this could happen. Soviet scientists in the 1970s, working in closed cities under classified research protocols, mapped the relationship between electromagnetic fields and temporal perception. Those findings never left the USA. But fragments surfaced years later, buried in obscure journals. They knew. They understood that if you could manipulate the field, you could manipulate the experience of time itself. And in a world where time equals attention and attention equals power, that's not just knowledge, that's a weapon. Sarah Chen, 34, software engineer from Portland, couldn't account for July. Not the memories, those existed. Client meetings, a weekend trip to Cannon Beach, her nephew's birthday party. She could recall events when prompted, but the sensation of having lived that month? Gone. She described it to her therapist as watching time on fast forward. She'd set intentions Monday morning, clear tasks, specific goals, and blink into Friday afternoon. Entire work weeks vanished, not from busyness, from compression. Her psychiatrist diagnosed adjustment disorder complicated by anxiety and prescribed a mindfulness app. 20 minutes of guided meditation daily. Gratitude journaling. Sleep hygiene protocols. Sarah complied. It didn't help. The compression accelerated. August felt like 2 weeks. By September, she was having panic attacks, convinced something was neurologically wrong. An MRI came back clean, blood work normal. Her doctor suggested therapy and possibly SSRIs. What actually helped came accidentally. Late September, Sarah joined friends for a camping trip in the North Cascades, 30 miles from cell service. 4 days without Wi-Fi. Without the 60 hits hum of that current running through every wall. without the 2.4 and 5 GHz pulse of wireless routers, without the microwave radiation of cell towers triangulating her position every 7 seconds. She went reluctantly. Being unreachable triggered her anxiety. But she went. The first 2 days were uncomfortable. Phantom phone checks, the twitchy feeling of disconnection. But on the third morning, she woke before dawn and walked to the edge of a glacial lake. The air was so still she could hear her own heartbeat. She sat on granite worn smooth by 10,000 years of weather and just breathed. That's when she noticed it. Her breath had slowed. Not from relaxation, from temporal expansion. The space between heartbeats felt wider. Minutes had texture again. She could feel duration, not as a concept, but as a lived sensation in her body. The inhale had a beginning, middle, and end. The pause before exhale stretched like warm honey. She sat for what she assumed was maybe 10 minutes. When she checked her watch later, 45 minutes had passed. Time had deepened. She spent the rest of the trip paying attention to that quality. The way afternoon light moved across the valley, the grain of wood smoke smell, the specific coldness of snowmelt water on her hands. Each moment felt inhabited again, like walking back into a house she'd been away from for years. When she returned to Portland, the compression resumed within 6 hours. By the next morning, she was back in fast forward. Except now, she knew it wasn't inevitable. So she tested it. She killed the breaker to her bedroom, moved her phone to the kitchen, slept with her window open despite October cold, grounding herself to the night sounds. Within 2 weeks, her subjective time sense deepened noticeably. A month later, she described feeling anchored in the present for the first time in years. Not all the time. Commuting, being in her office, anywhere surrounded by electrical infrastructure still created compression. But she'd found the edges of it. She could feel when she was in the distortion field and when she was out. Here's what she'd unknowingly done. Removed the interference pattern disrupting her brain's ability to entrain to Schumann resonance. Every electrical device in your home generates electromagnetic fields. Your refrigerator, your computer, your phone charger plugged into the wall even when nothing's charging. They create standing waves, overlapping frequencies that fill your living space like invisible noise. Your neural oscillators evolved to sync with Earth's 7.83 Hz pulse. Instead, lock onto the nearest strong signal, often 60 Hz at current, or Wi-Fi frequencies pulsing in the gigahertz range. You're trying to attune to a whisper while standing next to a jet engine. Try this right now. Place your hand over your heart. Count 10 breaths. Actually count them. Notice the quality of each inhale. Does it feel rushed? Are you anticipating the next breath before completing this one? Is there a tightness in your chest, a sense of needing to hurry even though no one's timing you? That's compressed time perception. That's the field acting on your nervous system. Now imagine doing this at dawn, barefoot on earth, away from electrical sources. Imagine your feet on soil or stone, your body conductively linked to the planet's surface. Imagine no Wi-Fi penetrating your cells, no AC current generating magnetic fields through your bedroom walls while you sleep. The difference isn't subtle. The difference is measurable in heart rate variability, in brainwave coherence, in cortisol levels and subjective time reports. The Schumann frequency isn't just affecting you. It's calling you back to baseline. But modern life keeps you jammed. Every device, every tower, every electrical grid is a competing signal drowning out the original tone. Sarah didn't fix her problem by trying harder or thinking differently. She fixed it by removing interference, by giving her nervous system permission to synchronize with the frequency it was designed to follow. And the deepest truth? You already know how to do this. Your body remembers. That pull you feel toward forests, oceans, mountains, that's not aesthetics. That's hunger for coherence. That's your biology trying to find the signal beneath the noise. But if time perception is electromagnetic and our environment is saturated with competing frequencies, what happens when we intentionally re-entrain? When we stop fighting the acceleration and start synchronizing with it on our own terms? The answer comes from decades of neurofeedback research that's been quietly accumulating in labs most people have never heard of. At UCLA's Mindfulness Awareness Research Center, Dr. Daniel Siegel's team spent 15 years studying what happens to the brain during sustained contemplative practice. When subjects practice techniques that amplify alpha-wave coherence, open monitoring meditation, rhythmic breathing, extended nature immersion, their temporal perception doesn't just stabilize, it expands. They report hours feeling full again. Not because they've added more hours, but because they've deepened the ones they have. Paradoxically, they accomplish more. Not from productivity hacks or time management. From being fully present in each moment, which allows faster processing, clearer decision-making, and the elimination of the scattered mental overhead that comes from temporal anxiety. When you're not worried about losing time, you stop losing time. Dr. Andrew Newberg's brain imaging studies at Thomas Jefferson University reveal something even more striking. When Tibetan monks enter deep states of meditation, the kind cultivated over decades of practice, their brains generate sustained 7.H theta-alpha crossover states. Exact Schumann resonance frequency, not approximately. Exactly, they're not transcending time, they're synchronizing with it, dropping below the noise of modern electromagnetic interference and locking onto the carrier wave of planetary consciousness. Ancient cultures knew this, even without EEG machines and frequency analyzers. Aboriginal Australians practiced Dadiri, deep, receptive listening to land. Not listening for specific sounds, but listening as a state of being. Modern neuroscience analysis of practitioners shows they produce 7 to 8 Hz dominant brainwave patterns while in Dadiri. They're not meditating in the Buddhist sense, they're resonating, allowing the land's frequency to entrain their consciousness. Mayan timekeepers used cacao ceremonies and drumming at 4 to 7 Hz theta range to reset perception during calendar transitions. The Maya understood that time was not linear but cyclical, not objective but relational. Their concept of ka'in, day, sun, time, held that temporal experience depended on your resonance with cosmic cycles. When that resonance broke, when you fell out of sync, they had protocols to restore it. Ritual. Rhythm. Plant medicine. They called it entering the crocodile's mouth, surrendering personal time to cosmic time, allowing the smaller oscillation of individual consciousness to be absorbed into the larger oscillation of universal rhythm. The transformation isn't mystical, it's biological. When your brain waves entrain to Schumann resonance, your pineal gland's melatonin production normalizes. Your melatonin doesn't just regulate sleep, it regulates your perception of time. Studies show that disrupted melatonin leads to temporal disorientation, that normalized melatonin restores time sense, even without changing external circumstances. Your HRV, heart rate variability, increases, indicating parasympathetic activation. Your nervous system shifts from sympathetic overdrive, that constant fight or flight hum, into rest and digest. And here's the crucial part. HRV correlates directly with temporal perception. High HRV equals expanded time sense. Low HRV equals compression. Your heart knows whether you're in or out of sync with the field. Your perception shifts from time scarcity to time abundance, not because you've added hours, but because you've deepened them. You move from chronos, clock time, to kairos, lived time. The Greeks had different words for these because they're fundamentally different experiences. Chronos marches forward regardless of your state. Kairos expands and contracts based on presence, meaning, resonance. This is your natural state. Before electric grids. Before Wi-Fi. Before constant electromagnetic bombardment. Humans lived in time abundance. 3 hours could contain what now takes 3 days because those hours were dense with presence. The compressed, rushed, vanishing time experience you accept as normal? That's the distortion. That's what happens when you're jammed by competing frequencies, when your neural oscillators are trying to sync with 60 different signals simultaneously and succeeding at none. You're not trying to achieve something impossible. You're remembering how to receive the signal beneath the noise. And the method is almost embarrassingly simple. Silence the interference. Ground your body. Breathe in rhythm. Let Earth's frequency find you. The acceleration you've been resisting? It's not your enemy. Your disconnection from it is. Because that rising Schumann frequency isn't chaos. It's invitation. The planet is shifting to a higher order coherence, and everything alive is being called to match it. Those who resist feel compression. Those who surrender feel expansion, not because the frequency changed, but because they stopped fighting it. Remember what we started with. Time itself is accelerating, not in your imagination, in the measurable frequency of planetary resonance. Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat has shifted from 7.83 Hz to ranges that spike above 8.6 Hz and climbing. Your perception of time evaporating, months vanishing, years compressing, that sense of being dragged forward through your life, it's real, it's documented, it's happening. But here's what that opening statement didn't tell you. Here's the part that changes everything. The acceleration isn't the problem. Your disconnection from it is. The Schumann frequency is rising because consciousness is rising. Earth's electromagnetic signature is shifting to match a higher order coherence, a faster vibration of being. And every biological system entrained to the old frequency feels the turbulence. You feel it as temporal compression because you're trying to maintain 7.83 Hz entrainment in an 8.6 reality. You're out of sync, not because you're broken, but because you're lagging. You were never meant to fight this acceleration. You were meant to ride it. Think about what happens during a phase transition. Water becoming steam. Ice becoming water. The molecules don't resist the temperature increase. They reorganize at a higher vibrational state. That's what's being asked of human consciousness right now. Not resistance. Reorganization, not slowing down. Speeding up. But speeding up in resonance, not in panic. The compression you feel, that sensation of months evaporating, is the friction of resistance. Your biology trying to maintain old rhythms in a new field. Like running on a treadmill that's accelerating while you try to stay at your comfortable jogging pace. Eventually you either speed up or you fall off. Most people are falling off. Burnout. Anxiety. The overwhelming sense that life is happening to them rather than through them. That's what resistance to frequency shift looks like in human experience. The solution isn't slowing time. You can't. The planet is accelerating whether you consent or not. The solution is catching up. Matching the new rhythm. Allowing your consciousness to entrain to the rising frequency instead of clinging to the old one. And here's the gift hidden inside the crisis. When you stop resisting and start synchronizing, time doesn't just stabilize. It expands. Because you're no longer experiencing temporal drag, that friction between your frequency and the field's frequency. You're moving with it. At higher coherence, you process more information per unit of time. You think faster, feel deeper, perceive wider, not from effort, from alignment. Every morning, before reaching for your phone, before jumping into the demands of the day, place your bare feet on earth for 3 minutes. Soil. Grass. Stone. Concrete doesn't count, it blocks conductivity. Let the planet's rhythm replace your anxiety's rhythm. Ground. Literally and electrically, let electrons flow from Earth into your body, neutralizing the positive charge buildup from electromagnetic exposure. Let your neural oscillators find the baseline tone beneath all the noise. Throughout your day, practice what the mystics called gaps, moments of pure presence between tasks. Not meditation, just stopping. 3 conscious breaths before switching from one activity to another. Feel the space between heartbeats. That's where time lives. Not in the chronology of events, in the depth of presence within each moment. And when you feel the acceleration pulling you forward, when you feel time compressing and panic rising, don't brace, don't resist, surrender. Let yourself move at the speed of now. Trust that your consciousness can handle faster oscillation. It can. It's designed to. You're not fragile. You're adaptable. You're being invited to remember that. The ancient Vedic seers who predicted Kali Yuga compression weren't warning of apocalypse. They were describing metamorphosis. The caterpillar dissolves completely before becoming butterfly. To the caterpillar, that dissolution feels like death. But it's not death, it's transformation at the cellular level. Time compression is the dissolution. What comes after is a form of consciousness that operates at higher frequency, processing reality faster, perceiving wider, living deeper. I am frequency, not form. I synchronize, not resist. I expand, not escape. Time isn't being stolen from you. You're being invited into a faster vibration of being. The people around you will still feel rushed, compressed, overwhelmed. You don't need to convince them, you just need to entrain differently, to find the signal they can't hear because they're too surrounded by noise. To remember that you're not a solid object being pushed through time, you're an oscillating field, and fields can change frequency. The question was never whether time feels faster. It does. Measurably. Electromagnetically, undeniably. The question is whether you're willing to accelerate with it, to let go of the old rhythm and learn the new one, to stop mourning the past pace and embrace the emerging tempo. Because on the other side of this compression, for those who make it through the frequency shift, time doesn't disappear. It deepens beyond anything you've known. Each moment becomes so rich, so dense with presence, that an hour contains what used to take a week. Not from cramming more in, from being more awake. That's not a future possibility. That's available right now. The moment you stop fighting and start flowing. The moment you ground, breathe, and let the rising frequency carry you instead of drown you. Earth is accelerating. Your consciousness can too. The only question is whether you'll go willingly or get dragged. Either way, you're going. The field is shifting, time is compressing, the rhythm is changing. But you? You were built for this. Your nervous system has the capacity. Your brain has the plasticity. Your consciousness has the range. You just forgot. This isn't about learning something new. It's about remembering what you've always been, an electromagnetic being, responsive to frequency, capable of entraining to whatever field you choose to inhabit. Choose the rising frequency, match it, move with it, and watch time transform from enemy to ally, from thief to teacher, from compression to expansion. You are the oscillation. Be the frequency you want to experience. The rest will follow.